I've been asked to level up even in circumstances where I knew I wasn't ready. It's getting uncomfortable with the uncomfortable. I've always said, you know what, I'm just going to do it. If you don't try and you don't fail, then you don't do anything. So it's insane how much more opportunities there are out there. And if it wasn't for that perseverance and willingness to fail, I would be stuck.
Hi, I'm Nick Warner. As a dad, a lucky husband, and as a business coach, I value people and relationships above all else. But next is winning, sustainability, and healthy culture. I've been a business owner for 25 years and served for decades as a special advisor to business and government leaders at all levels. Let's just say I've seen some stuff. My passion and my expertise are helping motivated professionals and businesses find the highest level confluence of what they want in life and business. This is what it feels like to be together at the top. Thank you to our sponsors, Scholl's Brick and Rogaski, Three Bridges Consulting, Kathy Olson at Ships and Trips, and Connect Strategies. How fun to welcome Jason Moncada back to Together at the Top. If Jay's name and voice sound familiar, it's because he participated in our Emerging Leaders episode back in November 2023. For reference, I've been coaching Jay for 4+ years. He's 34 years old, so when we started, it was just after his 30th birthday. As we've been in our executive sessions recently, I realized how far he's come, so I asked him if he'd be willing to avail our listeners some more of his way into his inspiring story. As a thought partner, nothing gets me more fired up than a talented, motivated, emerging leader, hungry to learn and grow and looking to pull some altitude. Let's not wait until our leaders are in their mid-50s or 60s to really learn from them. This is our opportunity to learn from Jay at 34. He'll be a C-suite executive by 40, if not sooner. I told him to ignore other people's timelines for him, and so far, he's exceeded my expectations at every level, and his bosses and teammates seem to also see what I see. For backdrop, Jay's an IT systems engineer by trade, but now he serves in increasingly high executive functions, and he's entirely out of the field at this stage. Jay is currently the Director of Solutions for eTech Group, a preeminent organization in the IT system integration industry. As with many of you listening and many of you that I coach, Jay came from the field and now he's in the executive office. In most cases, like the author Marshall Goldsmith says, quote, "What got you here won't get you there." So we train and we've got some work to do. As a point of personal privilege, Jay, it's been an honor to partner with you these last 4 years. I wish people could see us. We meet before everyone else wakes up, usually at 7 a.m. every third Monday. I never know where you'll be, but I know you'll be on and ready to roll and ready to get after it. Nobody wants it more than you, and the way you train, learn, master, and evolve ensures you'll be able to serve your teams and your family at the highest levels ongoing. I have full faith in you, and I know of which I speak. Thank you for the soulful opportunity of being with you on this leadership journey, Jay. Your personal and professional ceilings aren't even close to in view yet. You're just getting started. I'm very proud of you, and I'm excited to share you with our listeners. Tell us where you are today and say hello to the people of Together at the Top.
All right. Thanks, Nick. Yeah, today, luckily, I'm at home.
Look at that.
In Southern California, looking at the beautiful blue sky out of my home office. Super grateful to be able to do that.
And for those of you on the audio side, Jay showed up in a crisp white shirt with a really nice blue tie, looking sharp and looking like he means business. I really like that. I really appreciate that.
Yes, sir. Always. I take this opportunity seriously. And if it wasn't for Nick coaching and being serious every morning, probably wouldn't be here. I really appreciate you, Nick. So I'll make sure I was showed up ready just for you.
Appreciate that. Before I ask you to talk about your childhood and formative years, Jay, please tell us a little about your job and your company in your words.
So currently I'm the Director of Solutions for the West Coast region. Been tasked with growing a department that does solutions and estimating for the entire West Coast. So we're a private equity firm, continuously growing and continuously looking to scale. I think we're trying to grow about 15% every year on year. And this was a big bottleneck for our company as we came into this year and we identified the problem. And fortunately for myself, my team tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Hey, Jay, we think you're the best man for the job and, come help us out here." So while it wasn't in my career trajectory to be more in sales and estimating solutions, I've been operations all my life. I took the opportunity as it definitely can help me continue to grow in the direction I want to go.
Yeah, that's awesome. And Jay's an example. It might be a cop that comes from the street and is now in the executive office with budgets. It could be a lawyer. Jay happens to be in technology, came from the field. He's a trained, skilled engineer, and now he's dealing with budgets, personnel, people, solutions. You mentioned the problem. What was the problem that they pulled you in for, if you will?
The problem or challenge we were having is at the beginning of this year, we didn't have team members who had the experience in our trade directly. So the rest of the company was having challenges utilizing the department in certain areas. And as their bandwidths shortened up, the sales pipeline was also slow, shortening up. And in order to continue growing year over year, we can't allow that pipeline to slow down. So the team identified the problem and came up with the solution, and my name was pulled out of a hat. So I appreciated it.
Weird, you're an engineer and they called you in for plumbing. Like the pipes are backed up. We really got to get this going again.
Yeah, pretty much.
You didn't get here in a straight line, Jay, and it's part of the reason I asked you to be on the show. You're no kind of silver spoon baby. Describe for us your upbringing, if you would, and some of the experiences that shape you personally and now professionally.
I grew up in East Los Angeles, which isn't very common for a lot of people to come out of there, especially where I grew up, about a block away from the East LA projects. Fortunately, I had a very strong-minded mother who went to college, immigrated here, decided to go to college, get herself educated. And while through that time, I happened to be in the womb. So we always credit me starting my education before I was even out the womb while she was in college. And, from there, choosing a different path than the people around me. I didn't have the greatest examples around me in the neighborhood I grew up in. Most of the folk that I know or grew up with did not end up going to college and did not end up having a long career of choice. Their career paths were completely different. And even from there, I didn't have my father that was always side by side with my mother. So even that created another layer of complexity for me, because it was just, I had to take examples from the folk and mentors and people I ran into, which I actually call it my angels, along with my mom. I'm religious in some respect, but if it wasn't for these people like you, Nick, that I've crossed paths with, that taking the time to pull me up and just say, hey, you're different and always be different. And don't worry about what other people are doing. You're on the right trajectory and you're doing your own thing and it's working out. Just keep doing what you're doing, and listening to that and not getting impatient, not getting squirrely about the path. Some people don't realize it can take about 10 years before you actually get somewhere you really want to be sometimes, whether it's going to getting master's degree, bachelor's degree, you compound that with some career life experiences and you do all these things. And it takes a long time to actually get to a point where now I'm sitting in my house and thinking how blessed I am because of where I started. And I look around and I'm like, holy cow, like most of the people at my age don't really have what I have. And I really appreciate all the people, especially my mother, my wife, my kids, the small circle I have. I mean, even my mother-in-law, people who I never would have thought would pick me up when I was down or encourage me. If it wasn't for those people, I just would not be here.
You said some of your mentees, some of your angels or mentors and angels were telling you you're different. What were they telling you?
A lot of the mentors and people around me didn't really have the lens that I have or courage to stick to going to college and education, career path, paying your dues. It could have been from one of my first jobs at Subway. I always remember this because I worked with a gentleman who was an illegal immigrant, and he was using fake papers to just feed himself and his significant other. He didn't have children. He did not have the opportunities some of us have. He was here just trying to make a short living for himself. And he'd always look at me and say, hey, you're not supposed to be here. Don't use this as a forever thing. You're a U.S. citizen. You can live the American dream however you want to live it. Don't get stuck at Subway, for example. I worked a couple of fast food restaurants when I was young, going to college, and I ran into these people all the time that say, hey, like, you're smart. You have a good head on your shoulders. You're a lot more mature than people your age. Use that as your superpower. I mean, even down to a U.S. Marine Corps recruiter a long time ago. I don't even know if that I've shared this with you, Nick, but I was going to go to the Marine Corps out of high school. At the time, it was during the Afghanistan wars, and I had this huge grandiose plan. Like, I'm going to go to the Marine Corps. I'm going to use the GI Bill. I'm going to go to college while I'm in. And I created this whole plan. And it was funny because at some point, even this recruiter came and tapped me on the shoulder and said, hey, I don't know that you need this. And we're not in a great time in the world where you may not be able to take advantage of all the opportunities because they're going to tap you on the shoulder and ask you to go do something you may not want to do. So I just, want friendly advice, right? Like if you want to go, don't go for the plan, go because you want to be in the military. And I had to put a lot of thought to that. Typically recruiters are like, let's go. And having this recruiter sit down with me and say, hey, I don't know, I feel like you might be fine. Like, I think that the civilian life is just going to be okay for you. And, some of the folk that we want joining is because maybe they want to be a Marine Corps. They want to do these things, So I took that, and I mean, he was right. What's crazy is a lot of my peers that ended up going at that time came back very affected from the war. I could have been one of those people. And this is why I say these guys are like my angels, because I did turn around and I love the military for all they do. I have family members in the military, but he was right. I think at the time it wasn't for me, and I was looking for something different. And I'm so happy that he turned me around, because I did go do what I wanted to do, which is be in the electrical field, do what I do now, which is controls engineering, and go play with robots and conveyors and do these fun things, that even roller coasters. I've been around behind the scenes doing all this stuff, and I surely much more appreciate that path, even though the other path could have been great as well.
And really, really interesting stuff you hadn't shared about me before, especially about the recruiter and the subway story. Really, really interesting. I'm going to skip around on what I planned to ask you, because you're bringing up some really interesting things. In our last session, you said to me, Coach, you can't be afraid to fail. Say more and even get specific if you can.
I think there's some posts flying around, right? To me, it's relatable to you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. I've been asked to level up even in circumstances where I knew I wasn't ready. Many times when I was asked to go run a branch in Northern California with no experience in profit and loss reports, barely even any experience in employee management at a high level or highly compensated team members. When I say that, especially for me, sometimes it can be a little bit self-conscious at times, because I didn't get to go to the big university. I went to ITT Tech. I traveled the road to most. I did what I could to get where I'm at. So sometimes I have sat there and been like, man, can I do this? Like, am I okay? Am I going to be able to handle the pressure? These different questions and insecurities, will say, run through your mind at times. And I've always said, you know what? I'm just going to do it. If you don't try and you don't fail, then you don't do anything. So it's getting uncomfortable with the uncomfortable. And now going on this year, getting tapped on the shoulder again and sitting here and thinking, wow, I get to help people. I get to employ people and support them and do these things, and continuously still growing. I mean, we talk about all the time where some of those holes are for me, about probably the hardest thing in the world, which is people, managing people, always learning around that. It's insane how much more opportunities there are out there. And if it wasn't for that perseverance and willingness to fail, I would be stuck as an engineer in the field, and maybe not even an engineer, as an electrician, because at some point I decided to put the tool bag down and say, I want to try this, which directly correlated with what I do. But still, I wasn't ready, I will say, and I just did it.
I remember when you were on the Emerging Leaders Forum in November 2023, we were talking about this, and Jen Seha, who's the founder and CEO of Golden Bridge Strategies, she was one of the 3 emerging leaders on. She said, sometimes you just have to have an unreasonable amount of confidence, especially at a young age.
You can't be afraid to put yourself out there. Criticism's going to come no matter what. And as long as you can filter through what's constructive, it gets easier to just get through the noise and keep moving, keep pushing for yourself. And I know, like, now I do it for my team. I was able to meet an amazing team at eTech Group, probably the best coworkers I've ever had, people who actually care about each other. So yeah, I'm truly enjoying the ride here right now.
We appreciate your time. If you like what you've heard so far, do me a favor and leave a 5-star review and share with your friends. We'll be right back. The law firm of Scholes, Brick & Rogaski is a go-to partner for me. I work the most with partner Michael Rogaski. I go to them for business contracts, strategic legal counsel to maneuver through or around complex business situations, HR and employee issues, startup needs, intellectual property protections, collection matters, and recently the purchase or sale of a business. I really like the fact they tell me if they're not the best fit, and they give me a warm referral if I need it. Also, unlike so many attorneys, they're totally level-headed and calm. I've experienced it like their slogan says, small firm service, large firm result. Contact Michael Rogaski at sbrlawsd.com. Kathy Olson at Ships and Trips is as creative and as willing a travel partner as you can find. These days, you can plan a lot of trips on your own, but for those trips that require more intricate planning, tons of time, or local contacts and savvy, Kathy's the best. My family and friends have worked with her countless times in every travel country, setting, and season you can think of. Contact Kathy with a C at shipsandtripstravel.com. Let's actually take off from where you just left us. Let's talk about team. Let's talk about some of your experience. I want to get your thoughts on Good to Great by Jim Collins. Talks about you won't have to manage or motivate your best employees.
I love that book. They also talk about it's the who, not the what. I'm going to do a couple shout outs here.
The people before the product.
The people before the product. All these amazing quotes you can pull from this book, right? Which to those listening, if you haven't read it, read it. But yeah, I have an amazing group of young leaders that lead me, which is crazy. And they provide a lot of confidence to me every day because they're just as young as I am, and they're vice presidents. People look at us and say, wow, you guys are a young group and in executive positions already. And shout out to Randy and Casey for me. They've been, aside from Munich, those guys have trusted me, and they're the guys that tap me on the shoulder and talk to me every week and encourage me to continue doing what I'm doing and provide that security when I'm insecure about something, because they've probably been there or done that themselves. And as young leaders, they get it, that sometimes being young comes heavily scrutinized sometimes because people think that you don't have the time put in like they do. Some folk have 20, 30 years doing what they're doing before they get to a director or vice president, president level. And our core group at eTech, some of the guys that I say I grew up with because they've helped me grow in my business, the way I think analytically, from showing me you can't manage what you can't measure, which I knew, but they've shown how that truly plays into effect. We look at charts, we look at KPIs, and things aren't always about KPIs, but they guide. I've become a fan myself and understanding what those metrics look like, how they help you, how you manage through metrics can be easier than managing through feelings or emotions sometimes, because, you're able to show factual information to the guys beside you. There's so many different ways they've been able to help. I've got to credit Ryan, one of my buddies, Ryan, who brought me to the company, and Champion was a huge advocator, which, that's another thing, right? Finding the people who can be your lead blockers, stealing from the Nick book. Sometimes writing with those people really helps. And Ryan's been amazing friend for me, helped me and encouraged me in many different ways. Casey, Randy, aside from my circle, right, which is you, my wife, and my family outside of work, inside of work, these guys have been amazing for me.
It's exciting to hear that. Appreciate that. You said last time we talked, you said I'm part of a strategic group. I find that really cool. Kind of a nerd. What does that mean?
So we're a private equity firm. So our company has grown through acquisitions. And every time we acquire another company and have folk merge with and the reason why I call us our core group is because we're part of a company that got acquired. So if you've ever been a part of an acquisition, it's easy to turn around and say, oh, I remember when we used to do X. And you can have these conversations of reminiscence when you weren't part of an acquired company. And with these team members, it's amazing how, again, a young group, when I came on to what used to be Automation Group before the acquisition, we were a small company in a sense, okay numbers. I look at the trajectory they've been able to put a company on with, I think they were around 10 million after COVID. They developed a plan and strategically grow the company, almost double in size every single year. Again, very young people doing this. And then we get acquired, and then we're able to bring some of those skill sets to the acquisition and some of those learnings and help pair with everything that comes with corporate and help provide that insight from a different perspective sometimes. So when I say I'm part of a strategic group, because there's not a lot of us that have done that. And as we continue to grow and people come in and we continue to hire people, a lot of people aren't going to have those experiences of being a part of an acquired company because we'll probably be big already. So I always get tapped on the shoulder for my advice. I'm sure these guys get tapped on the shoulder many more times for their advice. And I look around and there's just not a lot of us. Anytime I'm on a call around company strategy, it's usually the same faces I see. And I'm grateful to be one of those faces.
Yeah, it's awesome. When I met you, you were pretty much, I'd say, running somebody else's medium-sized business. Then you went on your own and started a company on your own, which went amazing, like right away, took off. And then you got that, as you called it, the tap on the shoulder to come help run somebody's way bigger business and potentially even work at scale, which we'll get back to. We started talking about mentors. And one of the things that's, I don't know about unique, because a lot of my emerging leader clients work in healthy organizations and have the benefit of like really great bosses and teammates. And I think you're in that category for sure. I've been able to hear a lot over the years, and a lot of your success comes from the team you're on, the way they use you, the way you are able to learn from them as mentors and now as teammates. Talk about the role of negative mentoring also. You've seen a lot in your years. What have you seen that doesn't work? And talk about the role of negative mentors and how you act, how you think, how you plan, especially viewed against the outstanding people you work with now.
Fortunately, I haven't came across too many negative mentors. I definitely have come across some leaders that weren't, I would say, personally my favorite.
I'm looking at your face. You're so judicious.
But I've quickly moved on. Usually I like to stay in a place where I can grow. And so for me, it's always been chase the growth, don't chase the money, and the money usually comes with it. So I always look at opportunities that are in front of me and how I can grow, and then assess how maybe I can get that compensation through learning versus dollars. Some of the bad mentors I've had, typically it comes down to them not opening up in a way where I feel like I can grow, where maybe they just treat me like another employee on the bench, or have given me bad advice at times where, and unfortunately I was smart enough to listen or to pivot, and knowing what those signs look like right away and getting ahead of it. One of those bad mentors for me, at some point looked at me and said, yeah, unfortunately, we're not going to have any growth place for you in, if not 10 years. And almost like if you're lucky. And it's like looking at that and thinking, that's not going to happen. Like, we're going to move on.
Well, that's also a mentor not thinking about who, like a boss, not thinking about his employer's teammate and not thinking about his family, not thinking about just not squared up at all. Or the flip side is, hey, I told you, so I let you know, and you can make a decision accordingly. I don't hate that part. But mostly it's like, if you're a star employer, middling to great, I'm a lead blocker for you. Like you said, I'm finding a path for you. I'm finding growth for you. That's a really interesting example. Hey, thanks for telling me though.
Yeah, absolutely. Part of that was what turned me around. And I said, I'm going to go start my own business and look for somebody outside of work that I can bounce ideas off. That's actually part of what led me to reaching out and getting in front of you, was understanding that I was getting to a point where it could get sticky. Sometimes always leaning on somebody who you work with to help you or lead block for you it's not always the best thing. Having an outside perspective who can share ideas and say, hey, I think we should do this, or we should have a conversation with X person about this, and bouncing ideas off. Again, I didn't grow up in the greatest environment. I've had to try to find ways to look for the smarter people like you, Nick, and pull those ideas and thoughts and kind of try to propel myself through some of the teachings instead of trying to go learn that on my own. I was able to find smart people around me that I could learn from, and again, help me pivot when I need to, and maybe say, let's ride through this when I don't need to pivot. It always comes a point in time where you grow out of place somewhere, and figuring that out fast and pivoting would be my thing, and not being afraid to be uncomfortable. It could have been a cushy job to just do whatever this guy told me to do and fit into a bench position or whatever, but I don't like cushy. So I'm happy being in the pressure cooker, and it's nice for me now because I do get a lot of compliments for that, for the position I'm in. It's tough. We're growing in a department that's growing in a company that's growing super fast. So having to just be flexible and not die in the pressure cooker of what can be growth, not just personally, but as a company, has been crazy.
Yeah, and I'm blessed to know you. You're built on concrete, meaning like you value timeliness, sharp, doing what you say you're going to do. So I've seen that part of your game, and that's important to me too. And that brings me to hiring, because that's some places like if you're not in alignment with Jay and he's not in alignment with you, it's going to be a problem. Is hiring an art or a science? What have you learned from getting hires right and from getting them wrong, Jay?
I feel like hiring is an art. I've read a lot. You put me onto a book, reading this book, Who, and actually there's a team member, again, in this company that I'm in, there's a lot of people who are probably way smarter than I am in certain areas. And looking at these people and being able to be vulnerable and saying, okay, like, I don't know this. In the hiring, I found that it takes time. It's some muscle built, which is why I think it's an art, not a science, because it's different for everybody. I think about this guy who said, okay, before you hire, you should write down all the things that you do and some of the things that maybe somebody else can do that is a weakness for you. And you go hire to those weaknesses, and then you let somebody do those weaknesses for you. And that's how you start growing a team around you where everybody has their strengths and their weaknesses. So taking these concepts like this, for me, have worked. It's still not perfect. I'm still always learning, because you also got to look at the job itself and look at job descriptions and look at people, personality indexes, because sometimes people think that they can do the job, but looking at what their personality is, what their ingrained DNA is. I mean, I'm the type of person that breaks out of the common. So it's funny, what my personality index says, I'm an introvert, but I'm over here doing sales. For some of us, we can break the common, but for the most 90% of the people in the world, it's always a leading indicator. And when you take, again, going back to metrics and looking at the data and then looking at what you have and then trying to put that all together and make art by hopefully hiring a rock star employee. And even if they're not a rock star, looking at yourself as a leader and saying, okay, what did I do wrong here? And how maybe I can still help this person, which I think has been more of my weakness. Sometimes I try to help everybody. It's taught me so much about how hard it is to find right candidate, to find the right people, and how much of an art it is to interview for a position, because talking through people, getting people open up about themselves. And then unfortunately, you have to take that data back and, if somebody shared their deepest, darkest secret, look at it and say, okay, is this deepest, darkest secret he shared? Maybe I should feel honored he shared it or she shared it, or maybe not. Maybe I need to look at this and think, oh boy, and make a decision, unfortunately, on something personal. It's so hard sometimes because, again, where I grew up, if it wasn't for people giving me the opportunity, I wouldn't be here. So I also think about that, where you can always find that diamond in the rough. So sometimes you do have to take an opportunity. And if you hear me scrambling here, it's because it's tough.
Yeah, it is. That's why I asked.
There's no easy answer.
And you're young and you suffer from having feelings and actually caring about people. So it can be hard. You mentioned the book Who by Jeff Smart and Randy Street, and it details, it starts out some version of like, all right, tough, smart executive, you think you know what you're doing? How you doing on that hiring? And it goes on to say, economists call the single biggest problem in business today unsuccessful hiring. You should see, I am not an inexpensive business coach. You should see how much time I don't want to say waste, but spend at my high dollar amount across my portfolio on a bad hire. And sometimes they're low level. And I'm talking to the president or the CEO. They're big problems. So, we do things like, and you and I have talked a lot about this, we fall in love with the candidate, so we go sell them on the job. And we think what they did in this job will translate beautifully to the next job, but it's not the same thing. But we present it like it's the same thing. We don't talk about what's going to happen in month 3 and month 6 when we need from you. We just talk about like the first couple of days or the project we're on. And so pretty quickly we're in trouble. But boy, it is a lot of fun when you get it right. And it is no fun. It is a huge time and money drain. So I'm glad you mentioned that book. I think it's where art meets science. And I mean, the first time I read or actually listened to that book, I remember driving down, I was on I-80 near Sacramento, and it was talking about, have you made this mistake? Have you made that mistake? And I remember looking up in the rearview mirror and just going, oh, Warner, you got to be kidding me. Like, yeah, have I ever fallen in love with a candidate before I met them and gone and sold them the job? And 6 months in, I'm like, why didn't I listen? Why didn't I ask more probative questions? Holy smokes. Sound familiar?
Yeah, which listening to your gut, sometimes you can like the person, but your gut may be saying no, screaming no. And the selling the job is probably the biggest thing that, again, because you get emotional, you get excited and you start selling the job. And then I've had to pull myself down from that a couple of times recently as I continue to learn and pairing Jeff's science with some of the art that is with experience.
Ever done this? Oh, you're from LA? Oh, you're a Dodger fan. Where'd you go to school? Oh my, what a good, I really like this Jason guy. He's a great guy, Dodger fan. I'm like,
yeah,
that's not what we're hiring for, but our pheromones matched.
100%. I love Dodger fans, so I always hire a Dodger fan. Just kidding.
All right, Jay, I'm going to get into you now, like on some personal thoughts on like how you're experiencing the success. It's really an opportunity to learn from you. So you're 34 years old, as I've said. You bootstrap yourself into this professional position, but it comes with considerations. Talk about how you think about your financial health, housing considerations, taxes, saving for college for your 2 kids as examples. You come from nothing, respectfully. You haven't seen any of this before, and you have exactly 0 mentors for the most part around you. You're the mentor in every case, especially in your family. Just like you've heard me saying, being smart is not enough. It's also true that simply having a big title and starting to make a little money is not enough. What do you do with it and how do you get organized? What have you done in this regard and what advice would you give about advanced fiscal health as you progress? You mentioned to me that you feel you've been thinking, quote, average, and you're stepping it up.
You can make a lot of money, but if you don't manage it correctly, you end up with nothing. That's been probably the biggest thing for me as I've continued to grow is I don't think there's ever enough money if you don't create those boundaries for yourself. So yeah, I've talked about financial advisors and tax professionals and aligning the right team of folk financially behind you because there's been a lot of times I've gotten in a pattern of paycheck to paycheck way before I made this amount of money. And it's harder to do it when you make more money to get into that pattern. But when you look at that pattern, and I mean, there came a time where I was like, there's no way I can't continue to ask for a raise. I can't continue to max out my paycheck and then turn around and blame my employer and say, oh, they're not paying me enough. How can I go change jobs to make more money because I increased the cost of living to my life when I wasn't ready for it? And now you're blaming your employer because you feel underpaid, but yet it's probably because you're not managing your money correctly. I mean, that's probably a 10%, 20% case. I know a lot of people don't champion their value very well, but I personally do. And I try to maximize my value for my dollar output with all the things I talk about. And I've learned the hard way that going and spending and buying and maxing, like I said, maxing out that paycheck, I mean, it just creates so much stress. It doesn't present a planning effort. And in life, there's a few ways I plan, right? I have my career planning. Where do I want to be? Where do I want to go? Financial planning. Recently, I started talking a lot about retirement. I know I'm only 34, but I kick myself in the butt because I wish I started at 20. I wish I went and did my own 401k or IRA plan at 20 because it don't matter if you put $10 in that thing every month, every week, and you shorten that gap and you start early, very early, and you compound this interest and you compound. By the time you know it, 20 years, actually $40 a week in a span of 20 years turned into $50,000, for example. And maybe my math is wrong, but I've been doing analysis and I'm thinking sometimes it's just time, right? So the sooner you start with your career, with your retirement plan, with all your stuff, the sooner you start, the sooner you'll get out of what I call the hamster wheel of waking up every day, having to go to work. And fortunately for me, I love what I do. So I don't know that even when I retire, I might find something to do because I'm a workaholic by nature. But I truly feel that even then, you should consider trying to plan for that retirement, manage the money effectively. And it wasn't always like this, but I try to pay everything a week in advance. And I put these pressures on myself when it comes to money nowadays because, and I don't think that you can always look around and be like, I need a raise to solve my problem. I need more money to solve my problem. At some point, you can make 200,000, 300,000. I mean, there's athletes out there who make millions of dollars and then they overly spend it. They don't have financial advisors. They don't have great managers around them to support them. Then they go broke. And then you look at these signs and patterns and you think, I mean, I don't make millions of dollars yet, but hopefully one day I will. And what am I going to do when I get there? I can't go buy a Ferrari on my first million, or I can't go do these things, right? You got to learning where those limits are and learning how to manage within your limits personally has been huge for me because now I don't feel stressed all the time about money, right? I can go to work and be comfortable, do what I do. I can be with my family and be with my daughter, give her everything I don't have. And hopefully when she wants to go to college, she'll have a nest egg to pull from because we talk about 529 plans. My retirement, hopefully I'm retired by then so I can enjoy time with her or my son, my new son, and even just my wife. I mean, I spend 12 plus hours a day working, and that's probably not going to change for the next 5 to 10 years. I still got a lot of time, I feel, to continue growing, and, trying to be that first person in, at least in my small family, to break this generational thing. My mom immigrated here, helped us go to college. Crazy enough, she owns a few properties and she's just an amazing person herself. But that doesn't mean that because she did that, I can count on that. I always look and say, if she was able to do that with absolute zero, I at least was on the first or second step of that ladder. I should be 2 or 3 steps above her when I'm retiring. I always look at that, and not to be better than my mom, but to, I guess, almost pay homage to her effort. Like if your parent immigrated here and you can't look at that and say, well, I had nothing. That guy, he had a paid college ride, whatever. To me, it's just not an excuse anymore. There's college loans and there's so many ways around that looking at these things and saying, oh, I didn't come from something, and just excuses to keep yourself down. So understanding that I got to go do what I got to go do for my family, and I can't look at where I came from and hold myself down, then passing that on to my kids and saying, hey, I didn't have a 529 plan, but you do. Now giving them that next stepping stone and having them start halfway up the ladder versus 2 steps up like I did. And then turning around to my mom and her seeing this and her being proud of her kid, and then being proud of the next generation and saying, man, my effort didn't go to waste. I can see it coming to fruition with my kids and being able to enjoy her life right now as a retired person who, again, which is crazy. She retired a couple properties, and someone who came from nothing. I mean, if I think I came from quote unquote nothing, she absolutely came from nothing. It's just compounding, expanding, learning to manage money, looking at my mom. And there is another caveat to that. It can't always be saving. I always say that too. Enjoying a little bit of the moment sometimes too. I mean, I'm not perfect. There's sometimes I get out of pocket and okay, we got to make this up because I wanted to give my daughter the best birthday party she ever had. I'm not going to stop doing these things to be in, because maybe it might shorten my plan by a week. Oh my God. Okay. No, living life too, I think is super important, and being able to enjoy your financials, but again, always to a certain degree and limit before it gets crazy.
Yeah, that's really great. I was going to ask you to tell us about role of family and how Alicia and the kids play into your experience. I actually am going to ask you that because you flew over it, but tell me about Alicia and the kids and how they play into your considerations.
Well, that's a big one. I have to start by crediting my wife for being such an amazing and patient person. Aside from my mom, I can't credit her enough for allowing me to go chase my career. At some point, she put her career behind to take care of our kids. I look at that and I think that was another reason why I had to be successful. It wasn't a question for me. I had to go do what I had to do because I'm doing it for 2. And I had to look at my wife and say, I thank her every day for putting her career behind and allowing me to progress in my career and let me do this, because easily she could have said, hey, we have to be 50-50 parents. And unfortunately, when you're at this degree of a career, 8-hour days just don't do it sometimes. I don't even work by hours. I work by tasks or by milestones, right? So sometimes to reach those milestones, I've had 20-hour days sometimes where I'm just going. And all of a sudden I turn around like, oh my God, I blew through a day and I never went to sleep. I never ate. And then turning around and looking at my wife too, every day she wakes up, she has to wake up to take care of our kids. And she's ambitious. So that's why I couldn't not be where I'm at, because again, she's ambitious. She put her career behind. She said, I'll take care of the kids. You can go do that. And well, again, it's nice because now we have these things. But a long time ago, when she said that, I hadn't even finished college yet when she decided to take a backseat to my career. She said, babe, go. At this moment, we didn't have kids. So she's like, babe, I'll pay the bills. We had an apartment and she was a property manager. And so she's like, I'm going to take care of us and you go finish college. You go finish your education. And then you go, I had to take a huge pay cut to become an engineer. So go take that pay cut. Don't worry about it. I'm good. You go do these things. Don't worry about me. Was super selfless of her. Without her making that sacrifice, I couldn't put in the time that I put in at work, break the timelines, because I feel like I work 2 years every 1 year for the amount of time I put in. And I try to expand that value. And so waking up and then having my kids now, right? And putting an example in front of them and saying, Mackenzie, you have a 529 plan. I didn't. So you go maximize that thing because you get to go to an accredited college and be an alumni and hopefully have a sorority and do these things that I couldn't do. And I wish I could have done them, but I just didn't have time. There was no way. I had to go get that experience and do what I had to do in the job, in the weeds and grow in that space. So all of that. And then now I have my son. I get to turn around and give my son what I didn't have, which was a healthy father who can be here every day and support him and mentor him. He doesn't have to go look for one. He has somebody right in front of him to help him. Even my daughter, helping her break barriers and show her failing is okay at 8 years old versus at 16, 17 years old, learning failing is okay. not being insecure with herself sometimes and trying to find ways to help her maximize her talent at 8 years old versus 20, 25 years old. I love my family. And every year I continue to grow and grow. I'm grateful to be able to have children. And some people fly past that is, and even though kids are so hard, like you can't travel whenever you want. You can't go party whenever you want. You can't do whatever you want. A lot of my money goes to them. So, I could probably have an even better car and stuff if I didn't have kids. But if it wasn't for the kids, like my daughter calling me at 9 p.m. when I'm overseas or in another state working hard and saying, man, this is what I do it for, and waking up the next day. I mean, if it wasn't for that push that I get from my kids and for my wife's sacrifice, honestly, I probably would have quit a long time ago, because having something to do it for was a big deal for me. Because again, breaking timelines, I was able to get to a point where I felt I was somewhat successful already, making okay money. And I was looking around and I'm like, I mean, traveling, all that's fun and stuff. But yeah, I mean, just having kids and people to do it for, it's such a different motivation.
So inspiring. You are the American dream. I don't know your mom, but I have tremendous respect for her. Hearing more about it on this call is awesome. And I haven't met Alicia, but just hearing about your family over these last 4 years, it's really soulful. And I got a tear in my eye when you were telling some of that story. It's just so inspiring. And one of the things I'll tease out in addition to like the emotional part or just the warmth of what you just said is you just had a plan. You and Alicia have been working a plan.
Yes.
You've been talking about it like adults, like partners. And also, this is a flashpoint in time. You talked about she's really motivated and ambitious on her own. It's a flashpoint in time. Your kids are this age right now. These things evolve, but this is a really impressive, inspiring story about a couple that has a plan, that's working a plan, that communicates through things and then recalibrates their plan based on the stage, based on how the previous stage went. So it doesn't mean it's all going to work out or it's all linear, but you give yourself a great shot by communicating, having a plan the way you guys are. I can't help but tease that out.
It's cool to look back and say, man, babe, remember that time we're living off egg sandwiches or a cup of noodles? We didn't have money, and now we're eating at Ruth's Chris, having this beautiful steak at Cheesecake Factory, and who cares? Let's just go eat whatever, or let's just do whatever. And
because you're saving and living and working a plan, which allows you to live like that.
Yeah, it's crazy.
We appreciate your time. If you like what you've heard so far, do me a favor and leave a 5-star review and share with your friends. We'll be right back. Three Bridges Consulting did the video on the recently rebranded NickWarnerConsulting.com. I really love the video because it helps me sell by speaking directly to my prospective clients. Dennis and Sean at Three Bridges Consulting are high-level storytellers for the purpose of helping my prospective coaching clients understand what differentiates me from the pack. A recent new coaching client literally said to me, "You don't need to sell me, Nick. Your video sold me. I understand what you do and how you work with me as a client." That is a true story. You know I love that. Contact 3BC at threebridgesconsulting.co. Ken and his team at Connect Strategies head up my post-rebrand digital marketing campaign. I'm moving up the rankings for business coaches and consultants quickly. Connect is 20 years in the business, and I feel like they're really focused on my account. I refer business coaching clients to Connect too, and I get really good reports on result, professionalism, and drive. Thank you, Connect. Contact Ken at KNECHT strategies.com. I wanted to ask you about scale, and I even wanted to ask you about this comment. You and I have talked about this a couple times. I will not meet you down there. You have to meet me up here. But frankly, I'm more interested in the soulful stuff you've shared with us. So we're going to set that aside. We're in the fourth quarter, maybe even the middle of the fourth quarter. Are you down for a lightning round?
Yes, sir.
I cannot believe how quickly this hour's gone by. I'm like, no, I'm just getting started. Quick fire questions. What do you do for fun and stress relief?
So lately, it's gym. I like to ride bikes. Cycling is always fun. I try to choose adrenaline, things that pump me up, get my testosterone flowing. I had a team member just recently, because I was telling him, I'm like, man, since I started going to the gym every day again, I feel I'm starting to get that energy again, and my stress is down. And even though I'm in the pressure cooker, it's okay. I feel great. And he's like, and I love the way he put it. He's like, dude, you're a man. You need to go crush things and break things or lift things and do things, right? Like us as men, we need to be out there and doing that stuff. He works on a farm and he does what we do, but it's like every weekend I go find this tree I need to cut down, this hole I need to dig. And he's like, I get my kids, because he has 2 boys, and I get my boys and I go make them push the shovel and do these things. Cause then later on, when we sit down and we look back and we're like, oh, we did that. We're all sweaty and whatever, but we feel good. We let out some steam. Cause again, in a corporate or in an executive role, you can't always just let your emotions fly. So you hold a lot in, right? And if it isn't for the gym or cycling or, I like to paintball or I don't know. I mean, we've even gone as far as going and flying a plane and doing roller coasters, like these things that just like shake you up and you sit down and you're like, I went and relieved so much stress because this adrenaline just chews it up for me, at least. It's always fun. So, and lately I've been golfing too, which is crazy how I underestimated the sport so much, how fun it is to first of all, you got to learn to hit the ball. So once you finally hit the ball and you can actually make it down the fairway, it's such a fun game.
That's awesome. Next time you're up here, I want to take you out. I would love to play with you. Let's see how your games come around. Put you to the test. Listen to me talking. I'm good. What has been the most influential mistake you've made or lesson you've learned in your career?
For me, it's had to be going back to the managing the people. I've had to learn not everybody can receive constructive feedback the same way. Some people will take it and they'll run with it. Some people can get very defensive. Because I had a hard upbringing and my mom is a very brute type of person. She's very blunt. Unfortunately, I inherited those genes. And I say unfortunately because sometimes that bluntness can get you in trouble. So I've had to learn to scale that back, had to learn to be more empathetic and vulnerable with people to a certain extent. I think that for me has been the greatest learning lesson is the people and how to talk to people, knowing when I'm getting frustrated and stepping away from the people because I've failed as a leader many times. I've had people quit on me because of the way I communicate sometimes, and that always has been an impact for me because I'm a people person, whether I like it or not. I'm a big people person. I do care about people. So the first time my boss sat me down, he's like, Jay, this guy quit because of you. And I'm like, what? Look, what do you mean? What did I do? Right. And I'm thinking I'm helping this guy by giving him advice or telling him how it is. And then he's over here like, forget Jay because he's mean or whatever. Right. And maybe that wasn't as clean as he might have said it, but thinking about that and thinking, I don't want people quitting because of me. I don't want people feeling bad and feeling like they're not enough in the world because of me. Maybe it just doesn't fit what we're doing, but I always have to look at that and think about the person and think about how they may react. And because you talk about bad mentors, I don't want to be a bad mentor. I don't want to give people bad advice. And it's a very tricky situation for me, the people. So that's been the greatest learning experience for me because the technical stuff is easy in a way. At least for me, I think it comes very natural and easy. That was always okay. But the people, even just being a good team member and collaborating has been a big thing for me to learn.
What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given? And then I want to ask you, what are you still working on and trying to get better at? But what's the best piece of advice you've ever been given? It better be from me.
It is actually.
Think hard. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
High tides rise all ships. Like you said, having people meet you up here and knowing that, again, going back to feeling okay with what I'm doing and being very confident in what I'm doing and not letting somebody be like, Jay, you're doing too much or you're doing this. So if anybody ever tells you you're doing too much, it's probably because you're doing something right. I think that's probably my biggest advice is if you're getting told you're doing too much or you're going too fast, just keep going.
Grant Cardone says, be obsessed or be mediocre. Be obsessed or be mediocre. Don't tell me to slow down.
Exactly. You just got to go. You got to push.
You're really a lot. I'm like, you bet your butt I am. Let's go.
Yeah. You work a lot, Jay. Yeah, I know. I want something different. I always get that. You work a lot. I'm not willing to do that. That's fine. We're not all willing to do that. That's okay. I'm not asking.
But you said high tide rises all ships, or you got to meet me up here.
Knowing that if I accelerate, if I boost up, I feel like as a leader, it shows your team around you like, hey, we need to go. We need to go push. Just like looking in sports, right? If it wasn't for the Kobes and the Jordans to elevate their team, yeah, they had great people around them. On a team sport, you have to have people around you that are going to be as good as you are, or maybe better. But sometimes always showing perseverance and the ganas, the willingness to win and go no matter what. If you're going to call out, I'm still going to win. If you're going to show up and maybe not show out, we're still going to win because I want to win. I think that's huge.
If you think this is a tough guy conversation, it's mostly not, because Jay and I talk about meeting people down there on schedule and what they wear, being open to like their way of doing things. There's a lot of places we will where it makes sense to meet you down there as leaders, but there's certain things we will not. Inalienable, immutable, like you need to be on time. Being on time and unprepared is not on time. Do what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it. Say no to the right things so you can say yes to the right things. Don't overpromise and underdeliver. A lot of these are sayings or isms that have been around for 500 years for a reason, but there are certain things you have to meet me and Jay up here on, like I just talked about. It's not a inflexibility. It's just there are certain things that are immutable that make us us and make winners winners. What are you still working on and trying to get better at in this last question?
Saying no to say yes to other things is always a challenge for me because I like to help. That's been something that, while I'm getting better and I've come a long way from what I used to be, it's always continuing to understand where your time gets applied. I don't know that there's ever a perfect recipe, but that's something I feel like I can continue to grow in. And then I think my core theme was the people, continuing to learn how to manage and managing through empathy, not forgetting empathy and vulnerability with your people. So like you said, it might sound like a tough guy talk, but I'm definitely empathetic and vulnerable a lot more than I am now than I used to be, again, because you never know what people are going through as well and what their personal lives are, and looking at, okay, maybe they're going through something and trying to assess that and being okay, being flexible in some things for sure. So learning that point, I think it takes a lot of time because, again, I think it's an art. It's catered to yourself. Everybody has a different flexibility point. Knowing where that is and learning how to manage through that and setting those expectations up correctly, I think is a continuous learning process for me. And then ultimately learning how to be an executive, the best executive I can be. That is not going to stop. I don't ever think that's going to stop. Those are the things I've been working on lately.
Yeah, you've done a great job also reflecting on your experience. There's plenty of older folks that are mediocre on their job and they have experience, but they don't reflect on their experience and then read against it, coach against it, mentor against it, implement against it, and get better all the time. You do a great job reflecting on your experience and touching it up as you go. What are you excited about going forward, and what should I have asked you that I didn't as we close out here?
I don't know. I think you do a great job, Nick. It's hard to criticize, but
what are you excited about?
I'm excited to continue to try to get this thing right. I think, I'm not sure. You stumped me.
That's fine. We can blow right past it. Jason Moncada, you did an amazing job on this podcast. Thank you to our outstanding team at Podgety Podcast and to our producer, Riley Byrne. Thank you for listening, and see you next month on Together at the Top.
Thanks, Nick. Appreciate the opportunity and happy to do it again.
Thank you so much for your time. Together at the Top thrives off listeners like you. To stay connected, follow our socials in the show notes and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. We'll be releasing our show on the last Tuesday of every month. See you next time. At Nick Warner Consulting, we exist to coach and consult motivated professionals. I meet with you on Zoom in focused 90-minute sessions, working toward your goals and developing next-level business skill sets. My job is to add value to your organization and your career. To learn more, visit www.nickwarnerconsulting.com or call me directly at 916-765-3576.